All right, everybody, we're going to start a little bit early, and I know I'm going to probably take a lot of heat, I think, which is fine because this one was rescheduled. So my apologies out there to everybody on the last live stream that was supposed to happen a week ago, and I had a truck issue that I needed to get fixed, and one thing led to the other, and I get home, it's like, oh yeah, I didn't make it to the live stream. So anyway, we're here. I'm here. Me, myself, and I are here, and we'll get started in a few minutes. So just hang tight, and I'll put a little comment down here to make sure everybody knows that we haven't really officially started yet. We'll wait a few more minutes, probably 2 more minutes, to kind of let people, if they show up, they show up. Otherwise, it'll be solo, and it'll be something that people can stream or watch on YouTube on their own. So we'll get started here in just a minute. All right, we'll get started, and we're going to start off, and this will be something that I think we're going to grow into. I'm going to grow into it, and that is sharing photographs of different watches from viewers, um, everyday carry stuff, including knives, flashlights. Those are kind of the three things that I guess I'm going towards right now as far as sharing with viewers right now. So if you have anything in the future, if you're watching this on YouTube after the live stream is over, that is something that if you submit that to realidealgear.com, I will share watch photos. I will share hunting knife photos, folding knife photos, that kind of thing. And also flashlights, everyday carry type stuff. I've got one everyday carry, like total kit that I'm going to share with you today. And it's cool stuff. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the everyday carry stuff because you can go down a rabbit hole, way down a rabbit hole in that. So we're going to take this one step at a time. This is mostly about watches, and then it'll be about flashlights and knives, and then everyday carry and that kind of thing. So, but if we have time, we'll spend more time on the everyday carry too. So submit your photos to realidealgear.com. Make sure that they are appropriate for YouTube. So watch your background. Landscape is the best view when it comes down to sharing photos with me. If you put them in the portrait view, it just doesn't make the most use of the screen space. So landscape is the best way to take the photos if you can, and share a little bit about what you're sharing too. Brand name, model, if there's any stories that go along with it. Watches, the movement, crystal, kind of the standard specs that you might have or might see on other channels too. So that's something that we've done a few times earlier, and I've gotten a few more emails, and I anticipate this getting more and more I don't know, popular. We'll see. So we'll start off with the first one, and let's go to the shared screen here. And let's see. All right. This one's from Dan out of Alaska, and this is a classic Western knife set. So there are two knives that go along with this. and it is a scrimshaw ivory handle, which is absolutely beautiful. And I believe this is, now let's see what if he says here in the email. I don't get a year on this one, but from what I've seen, because I went on the internet, I went into eBay to look for something like this, and I want to say this is like in the 50s. I could be wrong on that, but it is decades old as far as these sets go. And this is a Western fixed blade knife, and just beautiful. The scribing that's on that ivory handle is really cool. The pinning on the end cap of the handle, awesome. It's got that Western look as far as the handle goes. And I've had this when I did my video on my favorite fixed blade hunting knives. One of them was a Western. It's called an L66. And I just thought it was kind of cool because I had it, I bought it in the early mid 80s, maybe probably the mid 80s. And I've had it ever since. And I use it for hunting all the time and for, processing big game. And I've gotten a number of comments on that particular knife. I think it's just been a really popular knife. It's nothing special. And actually, it's a discontinued knife or model, whatever. And it's gone up in price to the tune of about $10. So I've got my first collector's item that's actually making me a little bit of money. But I'm not going to sell it. It's one that I've always had. I've always used it for big game hunting. I always have it with me. It is the knife I think I'll probably always carry with me. It's a leather handle, which is different from this one. Dan's got, this is from Alaska. And his father had this, and there were two knives. It's a 2-knife set. You've got the regular big game knife set, and then there's a smaller, thinner knife that goes alongside of it. So that sheath has 2 knives that it holds. And this knife that's in the picture would be in the bigger side of the sheath. And then the smaller knife was in the other side, the bottom side. And from the email, he said that they lost it at one point in time, and they spent a lot of time looking for it. Never found it, but this is a knife that he's kept. And if you look at the blade, it has been sharpened over and over and over and over again. And I think he said also that he's not willing to sharpen it anymore because it's just getting down to the point where it's in the thicker part of the blade stock. So, the angle of cutting is sharper. So it has that well-worn knife look to it. So thanks for sharing that one, Dan, out of Alaska. That's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. I actually put a bid on a knife set similar to this one. I figured I wasn't going to get it, but I thought, you know what? Why not? Keep bumping the mic here. Why not? Give it a shot. See what happens. You can't win unless you're in. So anyway, there's that one. Now, next one is an EDC kit, and I love this one. I'm going to pull up the email here. This is from Michael, and let's see if Michael says where he is from. I don't see a location. Yeah. So obviously the CCW or the firearm that he would carry is not in the photo. And please don't share. I don't think you should share those. I think those are far too private. Concealed carry is concealed carry, and that's the way it should be. So anyway, this is the EDC kit. I love this kit, and you got a bunch of cool things going on here. You have a Surefire flashlight on the far left. You've got a tourniquet, and the kind of tourniquet you have here, I'm going to try and see if I can get this Snake Staff Systems tourniquet, which is, it sounds like it is a smaller version of the typical tourniquet system. And you've got obviously the Velcro strap that goes around your arm, and then you have the windlet that spins around, and that's what tightens the tourniquet down. And then you Velcro that down so it doesn't come undone. But a great thing to have. You've got the Spyderco knife up above, Bic lighter with an Army Ranger band on there, a little paracord that's got some lighting material in there, it looks like. The Bic lighter with the Gorilla Tape. The Gorilla Tape, I think, is one of the things that people don't forget about as far as first aid goes. Gorilla Tape is one of the best butterfly bandages you can probably have that's cheap, but also covers a wider area than just your typical butterfly bandage, which usually sutures or not sutures, but puts together a cut that doesn't necessarily need sutures or staples. But out in the field, man, Gorilla Tape is awesome for that. And then, of course, you've got the Victorinox Huntsman, which, yay, I've got my Victorinox Huntsman. This is what I carry around with me all the time when I'm not working. When I'm working, I carry around the Deluxe Tinker, but I carry that around. And then when I'm walking around doing, I don't know, more casual or maybe some formal type stuff, I need a thinner version, I carry around the Victorinox Compact. It's a much thinner version of the Huntsman. It doesn't have the saw in there and some other things, but it's great. But the Victorinox, great multi-tool. See, and I think this is something that people need to realize, that when you carry a Victorinox or a Swiss Army knife, you have your 2 small knives. Okay. Typically the setup is usually two small knife setup. So the knife that you're going to choose is probably going to be a mid-sized pocket carry knife. And that's what this Spyderco, let me see what the Spyderco is. Spyderco Manix 2. So to carry a really small knife when you're carrying a Victorinox Swiss Army knife is just kind of repetitively redundant. So I think that's a great setup. Surefire flashlight. I'm going to tell you, everybody, when you start carrying a flashlight in your pocket, and I'm not talking about cell phone. Cell phone flashlight is one thing, but the cell phone flashlight, the problem with it is it's your phone. And if you drop it, it is a major problem. If you drop a flashlight, no problem whatsoever. But that Surefire flashlight, when you look at the size of it, it's just a little bit bigger than the Bic lighter. Great size for a flashlight. And it looks like it's very, very compact. USB, so it's got a rechargeable battery on there. It's got the mode indicators on the side, and then the on-off, the tail cap light or the tail cap switch is on the very bottom. So tail cap switch is a tactical thing. So if you're used to using a tail cap switch for tactical reasons, keep it up. It's a great setup. The one that I have carried for a long time is the Olight Baton 2, the S1R Baton 2, and it is wonderful. And the other one is I'm testing it out, is the Ace Beam H16, and it is I would call it the Vietnam flashlight because it's at a right angle. You can't adjust this light at all, but you do have the two-way clip here, and you have a magnetic tail cap. And on the Olight, you also have a magnetic tail cap as well. The point being is once you start carrying one of these flashlights, this is, by the way, this is a AA size battery flashlight. This is the Olight next to it. Okay, very small. Okay, as far as it's about finger length. This one's a little bit bigger because it's a AA size battery, but it's also a lithium ion rechargeable battery. This is, I think, 800 lumen. So it's a very powerful light. But when you start carrying a flashlight like this, you use it all the time. Of the stuff that I see on this everyday carry kit, the thing that I think you use the most, the two things I think you use the most is the flashlight and the Swiss Army knife. When you have a Swiss Army knife, you probably don't, and I could be wrong, Michael, but I don't think you probably would use Spyderco knife as much when you have the Swiss Army knife in your pocket, because pulling out a big blade when you have the option for a smaller blade, maybe it's a little more precise cutting, whatever. I think the Swiss Army knife is gonna be the sweet spot for that. But everything in here is awesome. You're going to get yourself home. If you have a major first aid issue, you need a tourniquet. What's going to kill you first and foremost is an obstructed airway, your breathing. It's ABCs: airway, breathing, and circulation. Those three things. So your airways mean number one. You pass out. Breathing and circulation are 2 and 3. Circulation, what we're really talking about is those squirting wounds, not the ones that seep, not the ones that owie. We're talking the ones that there is blood everywhere. Okay, that's the wound you need to tighten up. So the tourniquet is the way to go. You don't need Band-Aids, you need a tourniquet. That's the life-saving tool. The Band-Aid is, days and maybe a week down the line, that kind of thing. So great everyday carry setup. I love it. I love the hunting knife from Dan out of Alaska. But I highly encourage everybody, put a flashlight in your pocket, carry it around for a week, and see what you think. I think you'll, when you do it, you will carry a flashlight from that point forward, especially if it's a small 800 lumen. You don't need anything that's 1500 lumens. You don't need the 18650 battery types, the big, the Nightcore. This is one I have here. It's on my desk you use for watch videos and things like that. You don't need something that big. It goes in your pocket. There's another one's called the Ace Beam Poke Light. Here it is, another AA by Ace Beam, AA size, tail cap switch, okay? Lithium ion battery. I think this one is also 800 lumen output, which is intense. That is intense. And it's just high, medium, low, nothing special. Whoops, turned it on. High, medium, low, nothing special, and goes in the pocket. And the smaller, the better. All right. So 2 more things that we're gonna take a look at today, and maybe the third if we have time, which are chronographs. And the chronographs, just like, what is it that you look for with a chronograph? What are the things that I've looked for in chronographs? I have several chronographs that we're going to go and just kind of briefly look over. All of these have been reviewed. So if you're looking for a detailed review, it's not going to be in this video. It's going to be in the videos in my video list. So go check those out. I will try to include the links in the description for this video. But if I don't do that, check the video list. They're all there. Okay. Very easy, identify the picture in this video and identify the picture in the other video and watch the review. So it's a series of chronographs that have varying qualities to them. different types of movements, mechanical versus quartz. You have different types of chronographs. You have different types of registers in the subdials, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 12 hours, different kind of legibility layouts of the dials as well. So that's something to consider. And one of the things I think you have to be aware of when it comes to chronographs, almost always, 90% of the time, is that chronographs are going to have a thicker case overall to the design, to the overall setup of the watch. So when you go into chronographs, anticipate a taller watch on the wrist. Anticipate it sticking a bit higher off the wrist. Okay. Think of it as kind of the G-Shock thing. Once you go into a G-Shock, it just gets taller right away. Okay. Even the Square or the Casio G-Shocks, those are both slim G-Shocks by relative standards, but you go beyond that and they just get bigger and bigger really quick. But that's just the way it is. That's the design. Just be aware of that being the design. There's a lot of great reasons why the G-Shocks are the way they're designed too. So chronographs, there's a whole bunch. We're going to go through. I'll just slip through. There we go. There's the first one. This is the Hamilton Khaki Field. This is a Swiss. Okay, obviously Hamilton has a Swiss movement. It's a Valjoux 7750 automatic mechanical movement in the as far as the movement's concerned. It's a different bracelet on there. The strap that comes with this watch is a green or olive drab leather bunt strap, and I hate the bunt part of it, so I took that off and I had the green olive drab leather strap for a while. And then I came across this razor bracelet, and I was going to put it on a Kamasu that I had, which I ended up giving to my son, but I kept the bracelet because I wanted to try it on another watch to see if it would work. And this is the only other watch it worked on, and I love it. I love the way it looks on this watch. I have yet to take it off. Here it is right here. I mean, it has this look to it that is just, you know what I mean? Yeah, I like it. And I've also changed out the clasp. This is a fully adjustable clasp. It's the diver extension clasp, but really it's just an adjustable clasp. It has the adjustment buttons on the outside rather than the inside of the clasp, so you can adjust it actually while it's on your wrist. You don't have to even take it off your wrist. But so something about this watch that you have to be aware of. Number one, you got great quality. It's Hamilton. You're going to get great quality out of this watch. You've got the sub registers on the 9 o'clock position is your running second time. And you'll notice there's no numbers on there whatsoever. It just tells you basically the 4 quadrants at 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and then returns to the minute. So that's what that 9 o'clock register is. The 6 o'clock is your 12-hour register. So that's hours. So at the very top, at the 12 o'clock, is your 30-minute register, and it goes around twice, and then you go down and look at your 12-hour, and it's going to go 1 hour clockwise around the clock. So, yeah, it records quite a bit of time, which is really nice. I love the 12-hour register. I'm not a big fan of the registers that have 50 minutes or 30 minutes. The ST1901 movement only has 30 minutes that you record at a time, and then it stops. It stops at 30 minutes. I have another quartz where it registers 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and then it stops, So from that perspective, I prefer 12 hours. I love 12 hours because for me, when I use it for work, I need more than an hour usually because I'm recording time, how much time it took me to do a job. So I really like that. Now you can go quartz and you can go digital display. We'll get to those in a minute. So we're talking mechanical for right now, but this is, I think, a really good introduction. Sapphire crystal. It's 100 meters of water resistant, screw down crown. But this is thick. I believe this is 15 millimeters tall, and it's 44 millimeters wide, maybe 43 millimeters wide. It's that's a hunk of metal on your wrist. All right. So just keep in mind that you're going to bump into things with something that big and that tall. All right. It's a heavy duty chronograph. All right, let's go to the next one. This is one of my favorites. This is a dress watch. It's a quartz movement. It's a Ronda movement, which I believe is Swiss made. And this is the Zeppelin 8680. Fantastic chronograph. It is a full lume dial. It has this classic, like early 20th century handset on there, maybe late 19th century handset on there. Has a tachometer on there as well. And I'm not that familiar with the tachometer. I know generally how it works, but I don't keep track of that. And it doesn't stick in my head overall. But It's kind of a harder watch to read. So this goes back to legibility. When you're looking at a watch like this and you have these many hands and they're all kind of thin and it's a relatively good sized watch. I'll put it up here with the Hamilton khaki next to each other so you can see. So these are the two, okay, the khaki and the Zeppelin, all right? And you can see the Hamilton khaki is a little bit bigger. The Zeppelin, smaller, and we'll show you another one here in a second that's even smaller than the Zeppelin. But keep that in mind that the smaller your chronograph gets, the harder it is going to be to read the different subdials that are on your watch, because everything gets smaller. The handset gets smaller, the subdials get smaller, everything gets compressed. So size-wise, and that's one of the reasons why pilot watches are so big, because if there was a chronograph on there, and there were chronographs on there for a long period of time before the digital watch age came about, they were big because you needed the space to actually read what was going on those subdials. So that's something to keep in mind as far as the size of the watch. Highly recommend that you go bigger than you think, not too big that you can't really wear it, but size, the second time zone. So that alarm operates only off of that subdial. It does not operate off of the main timekeeping dial, which is the center pinion. So everything about that alarm is contained in that subdial. So when you hit the set button, that alarm switches over to setting the time that alarm is going to be based off of. Once you turn the set component off, then you can use the pusher, the 4 o'clock pusher, to set the alarm. So it's kind of a complicated setup, but it really is kind of interesting, and it does work. It's a great quartz alarm. I like wearing it for that reason. I've always got an alarm on me. At the same time, it's an analog watch. It's quartz, grab and go. Like, there's so many good things about it. You have a date on there as well. And then the running seconds is the ticking quartz running set. It's a quartz movement, so you're going to get a full second tick each time, and that's at the 3 o'clock. And then the 9 o'clock has your minute and I believe it's hour register. So it goes around 30 minutes at a time. And then there's a second hand underneath that will move to the next half hour each time. And instead of a flyback system, it is a spin back. So you can watch this thing spin. So if you let's say you record 35 minutes, or not even that, you just record a minute or 2 minutes. That dial at the 9 o'clock spends probably a good 45 seconds to a minute spinning all the way back to basically 0, 0. So kind of a cool thing, cool setup. And the loom on this watch is outstanding. Great review on this one. I really like this watch. I'm surprised at the popularity of this watch on the reviews that I have. This is one of the more popular quartz movements that I've reviewed of all the videos I've done. And I've done over 100 videos now. So it's really an interesting watch, and it's cheap. It's usually right around $250, brand new. You can get them a little bit cheaper every now and then. They have different styles out there. This one, if I was to go back, I'd probably get one that didn't have, that had actually the alphanumeric numbers, 1 through 12 on there. Just easier to read. It takes me a little bit to read this, but you know what? With the handset that's on here, it's going to take you a little bit to read it anyway. So get ready for a pause in your day as you read the time. But it's not bad. I like it. I love the designs. Very retro, very classic, I guess. Not retro. It's very classic looking, and I like that a lot. Next up, there's the loom. Yeah, I got to have the loom shot. And it is bright. It is a nightlight. I am not exaggerating. When that thing is just charged up, and I use a small UV light, a Rovivon A8. I use the UV light there and light these things up, and it lasts pretty much all night. It's really close to all night, if not all night. It is really bright, and when it's this bright, you can see everything on the dial. It's awesome. All right, next one up is a AliExpress. Now, I want to show real quick before I forget those 3 watches next to each other. Now we're going to get a good view of what a 38, it's either 38 or 39. The Pierre Paulin is a 38 or 39 millimeter case. And then I believe the Zeppelin is a 42, and I think the Hamilton is a 44. And you get to see the size differences. All right. Now also notice that your register, your subdials are smaller when you look at that Pierre Paulin versus the Hamilton. Okay. And of course, the running second on the Hamilton is extremely small. But when it comes down to the total time totalers on there, you're going to get a smaller subdial. So just a visual on what happens geometrically when you start shrinking a circle. It just ends up making everything on the inside that much smaller. Now, the nice thing about the Pierre Paulin vintage chronograph, it's an ST 1901 movement. So you get that just cool looking movement. The Chinese movement on here is just fascinating. I know it's old and it's not necessarily the most reliable, although I've never had a problem with them. And I think statistically, it's not that big of a deal. But just the complexity of everything that's in there and watching it run and starting and stopping. And it's just a very fun watch to look at. But this is kind of that retro thing. And so my encouragement to everybody when it comes to a chronograph, if you've already got one, or if you want to step out a little bit, start looking at some of the retro styles, start looking at some of just the variety that's out there, getting away from the pilot and maybe the kind of the field looking watches. They're great. There's nothing wrong with them. Matter of fact, the first one I got was the Hamilton khaki field. So I'm not going to be hypocritical and say don't get one of those first, but I think there's just so many cool designs out there to just really slow down before you get a chronograph. They're complex movements. So if you're going to get a mechanical one, be ready for a heavier watch, bigger watch, all of that. Okay. And when it comes time to maintain it, you're going to pay, a significant amount of money to get that thing serviced. So a lot of moving parts in there when it comes to a chronograph. It's a significant complication on a mechanical watch. So slow down, take a look at it. And I really would spend time looking at those subdials, because to me, the subdials are really important. There's a number of them out there that have a subdial that is a 24-hour subdial, which I think is an absolute waste of space. As soon as I see it, I don't even care what the rest of the watch looks like. Because if I'm going to buy a watch with a subdial, I don't want to waste that space on whether or not it's 2,300 hours or it's 600 hours. I know when it's morning, I know when it's nighttime. I don't need to be told that part. What I need to be told is how much time has elapsed, what the running seconds are, that kind of thing. I just do not understand why that 24-hour subdial is ever put on a watch. I don't get it. I think what it's there for is to put another subdial on the face of the watch. I think that's pretty much it. But anyway, this Pierre Paulin, great design. This is a reverse Panda. I believe they have the regular Panda with the black subdials and the white dial face. Really simple. And if you look at the chronograph second hand, which is almost always in the 12 o'clock position, in the resting position, it is a whiteout hand, completely white. And then the hour and minute hand have loom on them, and I think they're steel hands, or they're metal rimmed hands with loom in the middle. Just a cool looking watch, black and white. So what does this mean? You get to wear. I think you can wear this one with a formal outfit, because it's a smaller watch to begin with. It's black and white. It's got a lot of polish to it. This is polish all the way around. It's that Art Deco stepped case look to it, and I think I've got another picture here. Yeah, there we go. It has that Art Deco stepped bezel look up to the crystal. The crystal stands above that. It's just a classic looking early 20th century watch, and that right around that 1920s time frame where the Art Deco architecture was at its peak. All right. Great leather strap. Overall cost for this is where the ST 1901 movement is such a cost-saving movement. You're going to find that movement in a lot of chronographs that are in that $200 to $400 range. And I really mean $200 range. I think this one was close to $200 when I bought it on sale on AliExpress. They use these in Helm. I think Helm uses them in their chronographs. And there's a number of companies that use, is it Vero? Do they use it as well? I don't quote me on this. There's a number of micro brands out there that still use the ST 1901 movement as their chronograph movement. Okay. And these watches are $500, $600, $700 watches. So I wouldn't poo-poo the 1901 movement. I think it's a quality movement. You just got to kind of be careful where you buy it, who you buy it from. If you're buying it off AliExpress, if you're buying it from a micro brand, I think they source their 1901 movements from companies that are reputable in the manufacturing and the setup of those movements. So I really, really like the Pierre Paulin. I think it's a classic looking chronograph. Again, it's almost like the chronograph kind of lends itself more to more of a classy 20th century era of watch making and watch wearing. So great watch movement. Love it. There's kind of a picture of the Pierre Paulin on my wrist, just so that you have an idea of just what the size proportion is. I've got an above average size wrist. I actually don't know what the diameter or the circumference of my wrist is. So I've had that question asked a few times. It's like, I should really check that out. And I never do. But I know it's above average. I know that much for sure. Or maybe it's average, somewhere in there. I'll just leave it at that. I know it's not small, it's not big. And there's another one. So that's the proportion that you get while wearing the Hamilton. So when you go back and forth, you can definitely see how proportion plays a role in all of this. That's much more of a semi-formal, formal type setup. A little bit harder to read for me with reading glasses. Okay, it's a little harder to read, except for the time. The time I can read totally fine on that watch because the contrast is so good with the hour hand and the minute hand. Bigger dial, everything's just bigger. I've got the numbers on there that are nice and big too, which is great. I love wearing that watch. It's just a big chunky watch. And because it's so big and chunky, I have to wear it tighter on the wrist. Otherwise the back and forth slop on the wrist gets to be too much. So you'll find that with heavier watches that you kind of have to tighten them down on your wrist just to keep them in place and not, rub your skin the wrong way and get blisters or whatever, chafing. All right, up next is going to be this Sujus. I think it's 001. And yes, it's definitely an homage. All right, but another classy looking chronograph. And I wanted to point this out because this one, I struggle with this when it comes down to reading the time. I love the design. Obviously, it's a classic design. It's an homage of a classic design. I get it. But the point is the legibility of this is more difficult because the hands are silver, the dial is white. You get good contrast when the hands are over those subdials because they're rimmed in black. But overall, you have to be really, I think, aware of legibility because you have so many things going on in that watch. Great watch, great movement. It is the Chinese version of the Valjoux 7750, which is a Swiss movement, and it keeps great time, smooth. The running second hand is at the 6 o'clock position, which on this photograph is like 11 o'clock. And then the other two subdials across from each other, those are the time totalers. So just a great movement, and it's a great looking watch. That's all I can say. Something else too is with this watch is the screw down crown, the screw down pushers. If you're going to have any significant water resistance, you almost always have to have screw down pushers and a screw down crown. So make sure that when you put this watch on, especially if you're going to step into the shower, you're going to go swim somewhere, put your hand in the bucket of water, whatever, just reach over, make sure those crowns are screwed down. That's what I've always done before I step in, because I always shower with my watch on because it just cleans the watch off. Whatever dust and dirt is on there from the day just kind of helps rinse it off. But I just always reach over and make sure that those crowns are tight. So it's a great watch. Sapphire crystal. It's 100 meters of water resistance. I'm almost positive it's 100 meters of water resistance. The only thing I don't like about the Sujus is the clasp. The micro adjust in there is absolutely horrible. It happens to fit me just fine, but the way you adjust it is convoluted because it doesn't have any spring bars that you can access from the outside of the clasp, like the typical dive watch clasp. So, it's mimicking the homage, the original, as best they can, but this is where it falls apart fast. But it happens to fit me just fine, so I'm okay with it. So, I suppose if you were to get it to be fitted to your wrist, you only really have to do it once, as long as it's fitting, the most of the circumstances of the day. But great looking watch. Just keep an eye on the legibility and all the shiny stuff out there. You need a shiny set of hands. They don't work very well with a light background. I actually thought that the black dial version of this watch, of the Sujus, was even less legible than this one. And I don't know, maybe it was kind of very close one way or the other, and maybe I chose incorrectly, but I thought this was the more legible. I was going back and forth. Do I get the black? Do I get the white dial? Which one am I going to get? And I think the white dial is going to do a better job. So far, that's kind of how it works. I think overall, it's just going to be tough anyway. All right. Yeah, chronograph comes in all shapes and sizes. There is nothing wrong with wearing a digital watch and the digital watch having a stopwatch. A stopwatch is a chronograph. A chronograph's a fancy word for stopwatch, measuring a period of time. Chronograph, measurement of time. And so stopwatch measures a period of time. So any digital watch out there is fantastic for a chronograph purpose. It's straightforward, easy to use. This is the Square G-Shock. This is a 5610U, which is the solar and also the multi-band 6, which is the atomic timekeeping. So every day it updates to the most accurate time. So you never have to set the time, because even during daylight savings time, it adjusts itself. It'll go back an hour, go forward an hour, because it checks in with the atomic clock in Denver, Colorado. So if you can get that signal, you're going to have an accurate watch all the time. You got tough solar, you don't have to worry about the battery ever. Okay, as long as you're alive, I think it's going to be fine. I've had Casio ProTrek triple sensors with battery with tough solar, and I never had to change the batteries. And I've had those for 15 plus years, 16 years. Never had to change the battery. My son now, my youngest son now has it, and it's still running just fine. So, but the chronograph function on here is just straightforward. You go to the stopwatch, start, stop, reset. They'll have lap. You can keep track of laps. You can keep track of first and second place. There's a lot of cool things you can do with the stopwatch or the chronograph on a digital watch that you can't do with a mechanical watch. So if you like to do that kind of stuff, if you're into running and you're doing, intervals or whatever the training is that you're doing physically, the digital watch probably is the better option for a chronograph than a mechanical watch. The mechanical watch, you can certainly do intervals. You just have to pay attention to it. One of the watches that I think that's really fun for that is the WS 1600, which has multiple timers. And no matter how you arrange the time on the timers, it always runs sequentially. So if the first timer is set up for 5 minutes and the alarm goes off, and then the second timer is set up for 10 minutes and the alarm goes off, and the third timer is set up for 7 minutes, it will still go first timer, third timer, second timer, as far as sequentially through all the timer functions. So pretty cool thing. I think it has 5 timers on it. But another version of a chronograph that actually notifies you for a specific elapsed amount of time. So different from a stopwatch where it's a running time and a timer is a countdown. So great set of features. Casio's not the only one. Timex has these as well. There's a whole bunch of watches. All the smart watches have this stuff. Yeah, I said the word smartwatch. But they have that same function as well. So if you're looking for chronographs, it's all there. I just think at some point you need to get a mechanical chronograph. It is just so retro cool. Like if you're getting an analog watch anyway, you're in the mindset, I think, of probably going for a chronograph. So go for a chronograph. I think it'd be well worth it. But the Casio G-Shocks are great. Any kind of Casio out there. I think I have yet to come across a Casio that does not have a stopwatch function on it. I think that the basic module that they use is an alarm, stopwatch, and time. I think those are the 3 major modes that you get on a Casio watch. And I would venture to say that most of the other brands that are out there would do the same thing. But keep in mind too, that if you're going to use this at night or low light conditions, you want to have a good light. Hands down, you need to have a good light. I just published today, or just went live today, the Casio F91W, the legendary F91. And I don't think it's worth it because the light is terrible. Like you want to use the stopwatch, but the light is so bad you can't read the stopwatch in low light or no light conditions. So if you're going to get a digital watch for the stopwatch, make sure the light on the watch works so that you can see whatever you're doing in low light conditions or in no light conditions. It just makes it that much more useful. With the analog watches, make sure it has good lume. The Hamilton has awesome lume. The Zeppelin has awesome lume. The Sugis, not so good. Pierre Pauline, not so good. And I've got another one here I haven't put up there yet, but that one's not very good either. We'll get to that one here in just a sec. The lume is important, I think, just to extend the amount of useful hours in the day where that you can use that chronograph. That's all. I mean, if you're going to pay for it, you might as well just find a watch that also has good lume or a good light. So Red Star. Oh, this is probably one of the coolest looking chronographs out there. Now, this is an homage, so this is not an original design. This is actually from a Seiko. But this is you can get this off AliExpress. It's called the Red Star Bullhead chronograph. The bullhead is the design that you see here, where the pushers are at the 12 o'clock position. And just a cool looking design. I mean, this is another one of those like the Pierre Pauline. There are so many different watch case designs, and even this case where the pushers and the crown are located. I would, once you have one, maybe go out and try and find one that's really different. And that's what I did. I was like in AliExpress, like I'm going to look for a very different chronograph. This came across and I love it. I love the Fume dial where the dial is one color at the center of the dial. and it darkens as it goes out to the edges, which frankly makes the legibility of the watch even greater, because by the time it darkens out on the outside edges, that's where the hour markers are. And that's, in this case, that's where the white hour markers are. So I like that setup a lot. The running seconds is at the 6 o'clock position. And you can see there at the 12 o'clock, that's your time total. It's 30 minutes. And that's it. You get 30 minutes done. And it stops. It stops keeping track of time. So if you have anything that goes beyond 30 minutes, you're out of luck. And I'm not a fan of that at all. That's the downside to the ST1901 movement. I wish it was at least 60 minutes. For me, I want 12 hours. But I think that's the actual Valjoux Swiss movement when you get into something like that. But the red star, I mean, it's, here it is right here. The red star is phenomenal. Again, on the back, ST1901 movement. Get the display case back. If you get one of these watches with the movement, you have to get the display case back. It is so cool. Also, touch of color. So when you look at this chronograph second hand, which is the one that's almost always resting at the 12 o'clock position. In this case, in this photo, it's moving, or it was moving, but in this photo, it was not, it was active. So the red chronograph second hand is a great indicator of what's going on when you're keeping track of a specific time interval. So I love it. It stands out. Same thing with the Pierre Pauline. That was pure white. I think that was it. For the rest of them are pretty plain. The Zeppelin is a very thin chronograph second hand. The Sugis is a very thin chronograph second hand. And the same goes for the Hamilton. Although the Hamilton has a little red triangle on the end of the running second hand. You can see it right. See if I get a little bit closer. You can see it right there at the 12 o'clock position. So that is really helpful, especially when you have a thin chronograph second hand, because it just helps you locate where that chronograph second hand is. No doubt where this is on the red star. So it's a chunkier watch though, but it also has a different design to the case. The whole thing is just, I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, move on from there. All right. So when it comes down to chronographs, just kind of wrapping this thing up, because now we've got about 20 minutes left before the typical end of the live stream for me goes. Chronographs, I think, be patient with them. Take your time, research them. Go with something that you're going to use. Look at the subdials that are out there and determine for yourself, do I need a 60-minute subdial minimum? Do I need a 12-hour subdial minimum? Am I okay with quartz movements? Because quartz movements, they're always running. Just grab and go, and the chronograph is going with it as well. Be careful not to run the chronograph. It does run on the mechanical. It does run the spring barrel down faster. So once you wind it up, if you turn on the chronograph and you want to use that just kind of as your regular seconds hand, which some people do that, it's going to run down your run time on the watch, on the mechanical watch. On the quartz movement, yeah, you're going to run your battery down. It's going to eat more of the juice up because more stuff is moving. But you can run those as second hands. If you like the big red second hand on that bullhead to run around and be your actual second hand for the day, go right ahead and do it. But just keep in mind that you're going to be running low on power here much, much quicker than if you didn't run that chronograph. So keep in mind what you're going to use it for. Do you want to go stylish right away? Do you want to go really plain right away as far as the overall look of the watch? And then legibility. I can't stress this enough, because when you get all that stuff on there, and this is, I think, the classic. I struggle with the Zeppelin. The Zeppelin, to me, has a lot of stuff. It's pretty busy. Let's go back, because these pictures are better than me showing it via video. But the Zeppelin has a lot of stuff, and everything written on there is so small. You got to have, for me, I got to have my glasses on to read that stuff. I can tell the time. That's about it. I can read the time. As far as the alarm goes and the other subdial, it's not real practical for me to read that. And even reading the time can be a little bit difficult, because if I want to know if it's 10:15 or 10:16 or 10:17, those little minute markers on there are not as big as on some other watches. And they're moved in because the tachometer has enveloped the outside rings of the watch. So everything gets squeezed in the middle, which means it has less space. So Legibility is a big thing. So when you're looking at those watches, I encourage you to keep track of those things. But let me know in the comments down below here any ideas that you have for chronographs that are out there. And digital, don't forget digital, because that's a great first chronograph. If you don't have a digital watch for stopwatch purposes, you got to get a digital watch for that. If anything else, and this is what I did when I was a kid, start, stop. How fast is your reaction speed? Start, stop, reset. Start, stop, reset. See how quick you can do it. I think I've gotten it under 0.2 of a second. So maybe I'm not special that way, but I feel good about it. I give myself a trophy every time. All right. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about folding knives. What's a good folding knife / EDC knife? EDC means everyday carry. It's the knife that you would carry with you all the time. This is the knife that does a lot of duties. It can cover a lot of different situations. What knife would you choose? These are some of the examples of knives that I have. This is not necessarily the ones I carry, although the two, let's see here, the two to the right of the yellow knife, I carry a lot. All right, we'll get to those knives in just a second. But from left to right, we have the CJRB Crag. That's the Max Ace Balance, which is the yellow one. The black one in the middle is the CJRB Pyrite. And then next to that, I hit the microphone again. Next to that is the Civivi Elementum with brass scales, which makes it heavier, but it's so cool. And I've also changed out the pocket clip. So that does look different from most other Elementums out there, especially the pocket clip, because I've changed that out to a milled pocket clip. And then on the far right is the Mini Banter. That's a Civivi Mini Banter, if I remember right. Yeah, because they make the big one. Civivi makes the small one. So those are kind of different sizes. I've got this picture up here for a reason, to explain as folding knives. So for me, the ideal EDC carry is going to be a knife that's probably the Pyrite and the Elementum. Okay, if you're going left to right, it's numbers 3 and 4. Okay, just to the right of the yellow knife. Those are the two that I would carry the most. I love the blade shape. I love the size. My fingers can get around those handles, the scales, very easily. Good pocket clips, and you'll notice all the pocket clips are called deep carry pocket clips, although the yellow one, the Max Ace Balance, not quite as deep as the others. And how do you know? Because the higher up the pocket clip is, the deeper in the pocket you carry it. Okay. The Elementum, the brass scales one, that one's not nearly as high as the one on the right or the left of it. Okay. You can see how much higher that those pocket clips are on the handle. They are practically, I think the Pyrite is actually above, or below in this case, below the handle. So that whole knife, the only thing you're going to see in your pocket is just that little metal clip on the clip, or on the pocket. So pocket clip is important. How deep in the pocket do you want to carry it? Size of the knife is really important. I think those two knives, numbers 3 and 4, if you're going left to right, they're the right size knives, in my opinion. Now, the two on the left, I do carry those, and I don't mind carrying them. The thing that I remind myself when I carry a knife that big is I have to have pants or shorts that have wide pocket openings, so I get my hand into the pocket without scraping it on the handle of the knife going in. So the wider the pocket on my pants or shorts, the more likely it is that I'll carry a larger knife. Now, what about the Mini Banter on the far right? I don't carry that knife much. I got it because I was more curious about it, because everybody was talking about the Banter, and I was like, the Mini Banter. I'm gonna get the Mini Banter because I've got a bunch of mid-sized knives. So I got the Mini Banter. And I think the problem that I'm seeing with the Mini Banter, carrying the Mini Banter, is that it's not that much bigger than the knife on my Swiss Army knife as far as length is concerned. So when the length of the blade starts to get as close to the Swiss Army knife, the multi-tool that I carry in my pocket, then I'm more likely to not carry that smaller Mini Banter sized knife. And I have another one. It's a CJRB Malaya. And if you've watched any of my videos, you'll see these knives throughout the videos all the time. I always try to incorporate a knife in there, because I think I want people to see, like, what are the knives that I carry with these watches. Sometimes I match the color of the knife with the watch. You can get a little bit fancy that way. Or it's just, I want to carry a heavier duty knife because the watch I'm wearing is kind of that work type watch. And that's just kind of what my day is going to be like. So I do carry all of these 5 knives, and I have a whole bunch of others that are similar to this. I carry those as well, but these are the characteristics that I look for. So the size of the handle, the size of the blade, the pocket carry clip, the shape of the blade. As you can see, a knife that has a belly to it, I prefer it to have a belly to it. The Krag on the far left, I just think it's a cool knife. It's kind of got that sheep's foot cleaver look to it, and I like it a lot. Now that we're gonna get into the locking mechanisms here next, but you can see on this photo, before we switch to the next one, the locking mechanism on the CGRB Krag. I don't know exactly what it's called, but it is slick. It's very similar in operation to the classic Benchmade Axis lock system, where you pull that, if you look above the gold pivot there, you'll see a little, what looks like a button. You pull that button back towards the clip, and that releases the lock, and then the blade falls down. It's a good way to keep your fingers away from the opening that way. I don't think the liner lock system, we'll get the liner lock here in a minute, here in the photo, I don't think the liner lock is that big of a deal as far as safety goes. So this is a bad photo, but it gives you an idea of what these locking mechanisms are. And I changed out the yellow knife because I wanted to show you a frame lock. So I'm going to go back here. See the yellow knife? There it is. And there it's not. Okay. So that is a Tucson. I think it's, I forget what the number is on that one. But anyway, that's a frame lock. So that's the second one from the left. And you can see the frame of the knife goes in underneath the blade stock, preventing it from rotating down. Okay, that's why it's offset. The frame is offset into the knife. Now that's the same as the far right two knives. Those are called liner locks, where it's not the entire frame, it's just the liner on the inside goes in and blocks those off. So I like those. I don't mind them at all. As far as everyday carry, I'm used to it because I actually like sticking my thumb in there, releasing the liner lock, and then typically the flipper tab hits my thumb, and then I move my thumb out of the way. Okay. I like that system. I think it's a great way for me to tactily know where the blade is when I lower it. So I love flipper tabs for that reason. I think flipper tabs really work well for that. Now, the one on the far left, that's the CJRB. That's the Krag. That's the same one on the left over here. You'll see up there in the middle of the knife. You pull that back towards the handle or towards the clip, and that releases the knife blade, and it'll fall down. Now, the one in the middle, all right, that's the CJRB Pyrite button lock. You push that button in, releases, and it comes down. I am a huge fan of button locks. So if I'm looking for a knife carry, as of right now, I'm a button lock guy. I love button locks. Opening and closing, I just think that's a solid mechanism. I know the frame lock is a great deal, but I have a greater sense of security with a button lock than I do with the frame lock or a liner lock. That's where I'm at. Now, the Axis lock or the CJRB, the Krag on the far left again, okay, I do like that system. I've got a Benchmade, what's it called? I cannot think of the name. It's 3.0. It's almost the tip of my tongue. Anyway, that has an assist opening, but it also has the Axis lock system on it. And I love that knife. Emissary, that's what it is. It's the Emissary 2.5 or 3.0. I don't remember what it is, but the Emissary with the assist opening, great knife. I carried that knife for years. That was my everyday carry all the time, every day. I probably carry the Pyrite, the one in the middle, the most right now. Elementum would be second most. The bigger knives, of the bigger knives, it depends on the watch that I'm wearing, honestly. I think the bigger knives to me are kind of more like I'm matching up a knife with the watch that I'm wearing. Yeah, I'm geeking out a little bit on the fashion side of all this, but that's kind of how I approach the bigger knives, because if you're going to go that big, there really needs to be, you're going to be cut. You can cut anything you want with those. The blade stock on those is probably 30% thicker, 25% thicker than the other knives that are on that picture, the two on the left. They're hefty knives, but you also have a longer blade. I don't know. Carrying those knives, like I said, it's more about the pants I'm wearing. If the pants I'm wearing have a wide enough opening for the pocket, then I'll go big. I don't mind carrying a big knife at all. I like the mass of a bigger knife. I have a harder time with like the mini banter on the far right, just because I have a harder time. 4-finger grip on there is almost impossible for me. But I do love the compact size. So if I need to have something compact, if I'm getting dressed up to go out, like dressed up suit, or something where I really don't want to carry, this big metal knife in my pocket. So when you sit down, you've got this print of a huge pocket knife in your pocket. I would go with something smaller like the Mini Banter, or the CJRB Malaya. Two great knives, really. That's also something where I probably am not carrying. Here's another good point. I'm probably not carrying at that point in time my Swiss Army knife. So if I'm not carrying my Swiss Army knife, I do like the Banter for kind of that low profile, low printing on the pocket kind of thing with a smaller bladed knife. So I will go smaller if I don't have my Swiss Army knife, because again, it's duplicitous when you have that small knife and carrying the Swiss Army knife. So those are kind of the things that I carry for folding knives. I would say my favorites out there, it's probably the Pyrite. And I know the Elementum, when it came out 2 years ago, that was the bomb. I love the Elementum. And I was one of the guys that went out and bought, do I have two of those? I think I have two. Yes, I have a stainless steel version of it, I believe. And I also have a stainless steel version of the Pyrite, which is the one in black. And I love the stainless steel version. They're just a little slipperier. There's not much texture to them. So keep that in mind if you get a stainless steel liners or stainless steel handle on them, that they're a little bit slippier. So I like the G10. I like the grippiness of a G10. I like the look of the brass. It's heavy, but it looks cool. I've got some brass watches. Actually, I've got two brass watches that go right with this. And there's the fashion thing. Like it's pretty dang cool. For me, it's one of those things like I'm impressing myself. I don't know about anybody else out there that does that thing with everyday carry, but I impress myself with the everyday carry systems that I have in place. So I'll carry this. I'll carry one of those two flashlights I have. These are the two flashlights. I'm going to show them again. But, carry a knife. I carry a flashlight. I always carry a Swiss Army knife now. I used to carry the Gerber dime. I don't know if anybody out there carried the Gerber dime, but I used to carry the Gerber dime. And this was, several years, probably 3 or 4 years in a row. That was my multi-tool that I carry around. It has a little pliers in there, has a little knife, has a tweezer. And I was like, oh man, this has got a tweezer. This is just like the Swiss Army knife, and then I got back into the Swiss Army. It's like, why am I carrying this Gerber dime? The tweezer on here is not as good. The knife is smaller. And sure enough, the Swiss Army knife is a bigger setup, but at the same time, like everything on there is just, there's a lot of history, a lot of engineering that's gone into a Swiss Army knife. So, and it's great steel. Swiss Army knives, the steel they use for their knives and tools is phenomenal knife. It's phenomenal steel. So I love this setup. I love the Swiss Army knife. Okay. I carry the Huntsman just about everywhere. When I'm not working, I will carry the Olight Baton 2, or now I'm carrying the Ace Beam H16. I'm really trying to give it a fair shot. And actually, I like it. It's a little bit thinner than the Olight 2, but it is taller. And if this lithium ion battery ever runs out, you throw a AA battery in there and you're fine. You're good to go. So that's what I like about this, where the Olight is proprietary. Also, I didn't mention this about flashlights. Charging systems. So the Olight is proprietary. You see, take a look at the bottom of this. It's a magnetic base, but that's also the charging base. You have to have their charging cord to charge this flashlight. What's the charging system for the Ace Beam? Take the end cap off, the magnetic tail cap off, pull the battery out. It's a Type-C, USB Type-C that you plug in. Easy. A lot of Type-Cs around. Also, if that doesn't work, put a AA battery in. So this is where I think I'm making a philosophical shift between what I carry in my pockets, from the Olight to something that's a little bit more user-friendly. It's not as bright. So the Olight, this Baton 2, 1,000 lumens, super bright. It doesn't last very long, but it's 1,000 lumens. If you need something bright, this is it. Plus, it's a magnetic tail cap. So you can put this on something metal. I usually put it in the back of my truck when I'm backing something up at night and I need extra light behind me. I'll take my flashlight out, turn it on, stick it to the back tailgate of the truck, and I've got all the light I need to back up, right? A little different with this one, because this one has the head of the flashlight is at a right angle. So I'd have to stick it on the side of the truck to get the same thing. But I can also then turn, I can rotate, and I can go up and down with the light. You can't do that with this light. That's one of the things about a flashlight that comes straight out the back. If you don't have a way of sticking this on a different surface where it actually helps you point that flashlight up or down, you can get that, stick it on the side of something, and then you can rotate this. And that's what I like about that. I think I'm going to start going with the Ace Beam H16. I really like it a lot. Now, there's another one that just came out, and I'm going to pull that one up here. I'll be right back here in just a second. All right. Now, this one is the Nebo swivel. All right. So it's fundamentally, it's the same design as you're going to see on the H-beam, which is this one over here. And I'll tell you what, this may be the carry. Now, the problem with this is look how much wider this is. You're putting that in your pocket. You got to be cognizant of the fact that this is a big flashlight. Now, you can rotate this, okay? And now it's vertical. Now, again, that's taller than the ace beam, okay? This is a kind of a double A size battery flashlight. This is I'm not sure what kind, it's like a CR123 type battery in here. So it's a high output battery. You're going to get 1,000 lumens output on this flashlight, which is, it's a bit brighter than this one. But what I like about this one, and this may be the one I keep in my truck, this resolves the issue that this flashlight has. I can stick this on the back of the tailgate of my truck and have a beam of light that comes directly out the front end of the flashlight. Or I can rotate it and I can turn different angles and still have it in the same position and get all kinds of different angles of light as I rotate this, or I can go straight back. So this is the benefit of a rotating head. Now, I'm going to be searching far and wide for a flashlight like this, double A sized with a rotating head, or a triple A size. I wouldn't mind a triple A lithium ion battery with a rotating head. That to me would be the perfect everyday carry, emergency use flashlight. You put this inside of an engine compartment, and you're looking at something, you can get whatever angle you want out of this flashlight by touching this, to whatever metal surface inside the engine compartment. And you've got all the flexibility in the head of the watch, in the head of the light. I've done too many watch videos. In the head of the flashlight. So this is really, really, really interesting me. Have a high interest. Now here's the catch, and you can see it right away. There's the charging port. Okay, proprietary magnetic. It's just like the Olight. I'm not a fan of that. I just why did they do that? Put a USB-C charger on the side of the case somewhere, or allow the battery to come out and use the USB-C charger that way. I don't get it. Great double two-way clip. So you got a two-way clip on there. Let's see if I can get this. You can see it. There you go. So you can put on a ball cap, and now you've got a headlamp. If you got a baseball cap on, you got a headlamp, instantaneous. This is probably one of the best emergency lights. Probably have this in your car with the charging cord. Make sure you have a USB charging port of some kind, or a battery powered thing of some kind. This might be one of the best emergency flashlights you could possibly have. It does everything. Okay. And actually, I have another ace beam, or no, it's a Sofern that's shaped like this ace beam that goes in a headlamp deal, and it rotates this way. This one does too. I have a headband for this one, and it rotates. So it's a headband. It's a headlamp. So yeah. So if you get something like this, more than likely you're going to get a headlamp or a head strap that this goes into, making it a headlamp. All right. Enough of the flashlights. All right, gift giving ideas. We'll wrap it up. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one, and primarily because I've done a video on this. And so what you're going to see here is a list. Okay, so if this is of any interest to you, I'm going to put in the video description. I haven't done it yet, but I will put it in the video description, a list or a link to the video that I did. I think it was what was it? 20, 30 minutes long, 40 minutes long. I don't remember. I spent a lot of time doing it because there's just all kinds of ideas like these flashlights, like charging cords. So here's the list. I'm going to go through it pretty quick. I'm not going to touch on everything. But as far as watches are concerned, Casios are great gifts. For kids, the F201, I can't emphasize that enough. That's one of the best kid watches that I know of that's out there for a Casio for kids. I'm talking like elementary aged kids, junior high age. Now, if you get into junior high school, the W217 is great. The W800 has 100 meters of water resistance. The W217 is like a larger version of the the F91. The F91, in my opinion, is washed up. The video just came out today. And one of the people that said, hey, you're going to tell us what your opinion is? And he was being sarcastic, of course. I am not a fan of the the F91. I think it's a great watch. It's a legendary watch. And if you're looking for a legendary watch, the F91 is that. Okay. But if you're looking for a functional watch, it is absolutely not that. Okay, it's lightweight. That's about it. It's small and lightweight. That's about all you get out of that, because you get the same functions out of the W217, and it's a bigger size display, great light. That's a great, high school on up adult sized Casio. Very simple, alarm, stopwatch, great. The W800 is just basically that plus a timer, and a dual time setting, and then 100 meters of water resistance. Actually, the timer you have to hack to get that, really easy hack. YouTube's got it all over the place, and then you get a free timer out of that module. But it's 100 meters of water resistance, which is great. G-Shocks, you cannot go wrong with a G-Shock. The square is awesome. I have a triple sensor Pathfinder. I use that for outdoors. So if you have somebody who's loving the outdoors, that has the altimeter, barometer, compass, temperature built into it. And you have the stopwatch, timer, alarms, world time, all that's built into it as well. Okay, so triple sensor is a great deal for that. Analog, digital, there's all kinds of styles to go with. Now, other watches that are not Casio or digital type watches, these are just brand names I recommend. Seiko is great if you're looking for just a variety of like dive watches, dress watches, sport watches, chronographs, and these are quartz movements, and these are cheaper watches out there. Seiko makes some really great, affordable, cheaper cost watches. Bertucci, if you're looking for a field watch, Bertucci and infantry, I like those two. I prefer infantry. I think Bertucci, I'm not a fan of their NATO style strap. I'm just not. But you can get a different strap and put it on there. You don't have to keep it. Infantry is probably the best deal when it comes down to a quartz field style watch. And let's see, where do I have? I have it right here. Let me pull it up. So this is not the MDC, but this is a infantry field watch. $25. Super clear. Lume is okay, but extremely legible, very simple. You got a little red on the second hand, to identify the second hand, but it's just classic. $25, and it's got a great nylon strap. So infantry is a great way to go. Citizen, Invicta, same deal, same speech. They're great. They're great companies. A lot of people bash on Invicta. I think it's unfounded, most of it. Invicta has some weird stuff. And for some reason, because they make weird stuff, then the good stuff that they make is just not very valuable. I think that's backwards. That is bad logic. All right. Watch storage. Keep in mind, if you got watches and you got more than 3 or 4 watches, watch storage. Get a case for them. And I mean like a case, like an actual case that you can close and maybe carry. I have one that I have that is waterproof, and it has 32 holders in there. And I use that to transport when I'm showing my boys. I go out to Minnesota and show them the watch collection, or show a portion of the watch collection. I'll put it in there. It latches down really nice. It's waterproof. So if anything happens, the stuff on the inside is going to stay dry. So I like a hard case. A watch roll. Now it says hard case watch roll, but these in search this on YouTube, but a roll is like usually a 3 watch container, and it has this kind of cardboard leather thing that goes over the top and snaps down and keeps inside this kind of like a tube almost. Okay. But it's semi-hard case. Like this is going to provide protection. Or you can use the traditional cloth roll, where it's literally cloth, parking spots for watches. You fold the top down, roll it up, and then you have this string or cloth thing that goes around, you tie it shut. So that's kind of a cloth roll. Display case, you get those on, you know what I mean? Like you'll see those on Amazon all over the place. Don't forget Polywatch. For those Casio owners, anybody that has a watch that's non-sapphire, have some Polywatch. It removes most of the scratches, especially the hairline scratches from the crystal. Even it'll do some on the metal too. If you're patient enough, it'll do the same thing. It's a very small abrasive inside of a cream. That's all you're doing, is you're making much smaller scratches that removes the bigger scratches. Okay. So that's the whole idea. Microfiber cloth, watch tools. Oh, watch tools. I put this on at the end. If someone you are buying a gift for has a number of watches, especially mechanical watches, especially the metal bracelets, a watch toolkit I think is really, really important. I use it a lot. Okay. I'm using it to resize bands. I'm using it for clasps. I'll use it to take the back off of a Casio watch. You need a specific sized screwdriver to do that. So a real basic watch toolkit I think is super valuable. Folding knives, here's a bunch of manufacturers. Victorinox, that's the Swiss Army knife company. So some people forget that. They're looking for Swiss Army knife. Victorinox is actually the company that makes the Swiss Army knife. Gerber, those are both, Victorinox and Gerber are both multi-tool companies, and certainly Leatherman is in there. There's a few others that are out there. Those are the two multi-tool companies that came to my mind. But then the rest of those are folding knives. So your CJRB, Civivi, Spyderco, Benchmade, CRKT, the list it goes on forever. And there's a bunch of smaller companies that also make folding knives as well. Fixed knives, these are some of the cheaper ones. And then the two on the right are kind of a little bit more pricier, but Cold Steel, they make some great fixed steel knives. They also make one of the best heavy duty folding knives I have ever seen. It's the SR1. It's phenomenal. That is a survivor tool. That is something to have in the back of a truck. You can beat the snot out of that thing. Schrade is another great fixed blade company. Benchmade, pricier, quality steel. I mean, legitimately quality steel on that fixed blade. Flashlights, we kind of went through some of these. Ace Beam, Rovivon. I really recommend Rovivon. That is probably one of the best EDC-sized flashlights. The one thing I don't like about it, it's just a little too small for my hands. All right. But great features on it. The Rovivon A8 is probably one of the best deals out there. All kinds of functions with it. Different color lights. You have the UV light. You have a red light. You have the flashing red light. You have a reading light, and that's on the side of the case. Then you have the regular flashlight that comes out the top. Okay, and the newest version of the A8 has a magnetic base and a magnetic clip. It's a great deal. The Nebo swivel, I just showed you that one. Olight. Surefire is more expensive, but they got some great stuff, as we saw from Michael and his EDC. It's a great company, great flashlight. Sofern is a cheap version of basically Nightcore. Nightcore is an awesome company as well. Also, I recommend charging packs. Whatever flashlights you get, consider batteries, consider how they're going to be charged or the energy source replenished. So for me, if I get a battery pack, I'm going to get one that has a solar cell built into it. So I can leave it on the dash of a car, or the front seat of a car, or the back seat of the car, whatever. And it's always trickle charging. I don't have to maintain, I don't have to like, oh, every 2 months or every month I need to go plug in all my extra battery kits. I think that's the way to go. And then charging cords, of course, for that as well. So those are some of the gift ideas, and do with those as you will. The video that has a lot more of those and other ideas on there, specific watch ideas, things like that, that is going to be in the video description after I get this thing published. So it'll be out there probably within a few minutes of this live stream ending. So appreciate the time, everybody, and appreciate you watching and taking the time to look this over. Any feedback on here would be great. And next time, I won't have, I shouldn't have a truck issue. So it'll be actually in a couple of weeks. I'll have another one for December. I've got one scheduled for that. Be on the lookout for that as well. But submit your photos if you've got anything with EDC knives, watches in particular. This is more about the watch. This is a watch channel primarily. So watches is going to get the preferences. So if I get a bunch of watch photos and a few knife photos, the knife photos may not show up. Okay. But this is primarily about the watches. But I do try to get some of the knives, the flashlights, the EDC stuff in here, and make sure whatever you send in is appropriate for YouTube. And think of kids watching this. All right. That's just the way it is. Okay. We got to be responsible adults out there. All right. Appreciate it, everybody. My name's Tim. It's been another Real Ideal Gear live stream. We'll catch you next time.